Reinforcements have arrived.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Reporting. Very well.
Reinforcements
Very
have
well.
arrived.
Very well. Very well. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. 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 Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
Cannot
Vehicle
deploy here.
acknowledge. Report affirmative.
Construction options.
Vehicle
Building.
acknowledge. Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Reporting. Agreed.
Unit
Yes, sir.
lost. Construction complete. Unit
Yes, sir.
lost.
Affirmative. Ready and waiting. Very well. Agreed. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative.
Cannot deploy here. New construction options.
Reporting.
Building.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting order. Acknowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. 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 Reporting. Affirmative. Vehicle report. Acknowledge. Reporting.
Construction complete. New construction options. Building.
Awaiting order. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Construction complete. New construction options.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Awaiting order. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Insufficient funds.
Agreed. Very well. Awaiting orders. Report affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Waiting or knowledge. Yes, sir. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Vehicle reporting.
Reporting. Vehicle reporting.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Construction complete. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Acknowledge.
Reporting.
Construction complete. Cannot deploy here. Cannot deploy here. New construction options. Building. Construction complete. Building. Construction complete. Building. Construction complete. Building. Construction complete. Construction options. Building. On hold. Cancel. Building. Building.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders. Vehicle reporting. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Insufficient funds. Construction complete. Building.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Building. Construction complete. Construction
Yes, sir.
options.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Prepared. Unit ready. Building.
Vehicle reporting.
Unit prepared.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Prepared.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit prepared.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Prepared.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting.
Affirmative.
Unit ready. Unit
Affirmative.
prepared.
Vehicle report. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Our base is under attack.
Affirmative.
Building.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Report acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Waiting orders.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Prepared.
Ready and waiting at once.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building. Unit ready. Building. Construction complete. Building.
Reporting.
Acknowledged.
Construction complete. Unit prepared. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Construction complete. Building. Construction complete. Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Awaiting. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unable to comply. Building in
Vehicles
progress. Unit
acknowledged.
ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirm. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledge. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative.
Building. Unable to comply.
Affirmative.
Building in
Affirmative.
progress.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Preparing.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building. Building.
Vehicle affirmative. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Awaiting orders.
Construction complete. Unit prepared. Building. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Vehicle acknowledged.
Awaiting
Construction
orders.
complete.
Affirmative.
Preparing. Building. Unit lost. Unit prepared. Unit ready. Construction complete.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Awaiting order. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Building.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Awaiting order. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost. Unit
Affirmative.
ready. Building.
Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Reporting. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unable to comply. Building in progress.
Yes,
Unit
sir.
ready.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Reporting.
Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Yes, sir. Reporting.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Our base is under attack.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Construction complete. Building. Low power. Unit ready. Building. Construction complete. Building.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Vehicle acknowledged.
Construction complete. Unit
Vehicle
ready.
report. Yes, sir. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Reporting.
Repairing.
Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Awaiting orders.
Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Waiting.
Repair.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Awaiting
Unit
orders.
repaired. Repairing. Unit ready.
Awaiting orders.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Vehicle
Unit
reporting.
repaired.
Reporting.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle affirmative.
Building.
Waiting. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Vehicle affirmative. Affirmative. Vehicle
Unit
affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. 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 Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Unit lost. Building. Building. On hold. Cancel. Training. Unit ready.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Vehicle reporting.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Awaiting order. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Repairing.
Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Unit
Reporting.
lost.
Vehicle reporting.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
repaired.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Waiting order. Affirmative.
Our base is
Waiting
under attack.
affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Awaiting order. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Awaiting order. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Waiting orders. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Yes, sir.
Building.
Reporting. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Waiting orders. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders. Vehicle reporting.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Reporting.
Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Affirmative. 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 Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Building.
Ready and waiting. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Reporting.
Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Affirmative.
Unit lost. Unit ready.
Reporting.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Building. Unit ready.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged.
Building.
Reporting. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Construction complete. Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged.
Waiting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
lost.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost. Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Our base is under attack.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Primary building selected. Unit
Waiting
ready.
orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Ready
Unit
and waiting.
lost.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Waiting or knowledge. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Knowledge. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. 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 Acknowledge.
Building.
Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Awaiting.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit
Reporting.
lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Vehicle reported.
Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Reporting.
Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Awaiting
ready.
orders.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Vehicle report.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders.
Acknowledged.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. 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 Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Mission accomplished.